In Naruto, there are a ton of jutsus that seem to get used over and over and over again. The show seems to give us a million different variations of the Chidori and the Rasengan and the Rasen Shuriken and the Shadow Clone. But it doesn't mean that sometimes we're not served to new, incredibly interesting and unique jutsu. And sometimes those jutsu stick around. They get used by other people and we see them over and over and over again. Things like Sage Mode and Flying Raijin and Wood Release. Cool jutsus that appeared later on in the story, but we got to see again because they were important. Unfortunately, however, that is not the case for all the cool and unique and individual jutsu that got introduced later on in the story. As for every one jutsu that got used a second time, there was 5 that never got used again. I mean, within the confines of all Naruto lore, there is over 2,000 jutsus. I'd reckon anywhere between 1,700 and 1,800 of them have only ever been used once. So today, I want to take a step away from normalcy. Today, I want to take a look into the jutsus that were critically underutilized, incredibly unique or powerful jutsus that were introduced and then just kind of forgotten. And now this list is not a list of jutsus that have only been used one time. That could be a whole separate video. This is a list of jutsus that I believe were incredibly underutilized considering what they could have given to the story or anybody who used them. So today we're talking the most underappreciated jutsus in all of Naruto, ranked and explained. But since we're talking about being underappreciated, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. And if you really want to make me feel appreciated, go ahead and follow my other YouTube channel, The Weeb Commander, where instead of talking Naruto, I talk all anime. And if you like the idea of me talking all anime, then go ahead and follow my brand new podcast, Otaku's Anonymous, that I'm doing with Danny Mata, where we break down everything that happened in anime this week. DraftKings. Are you guys looking for a way to spice up your night without leaving the house? Well, then I have just the thing for you. Allow me to introduce you to DraftKings Casino. Yeah, you heard me right. No longer just DraftKings, I'm talking DraftKings Casino, a completely online casino with over 300 real money games. And if that alone doesn't sound fun enough to you, I'm also partnering with them right now. And if you sign up as a new customer to DraftKings Casino and use code NCHammer while you sign up and make a minimum $5 deposit, that deposit will be matched dollar for dollar all the way up to $2,000 in casino bonus funds. Yeah, that's right. DraftKings Casino is willing to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $2,000 with the code of NCHammer upon signing up. And this completely online casino not only has over 300 real cash games, but over 700 different types of slots. Some which you may recognize from some of your favorite casinos and others which are exclusive to the DraftKings app. But don't worry, if the DraftKings Casino app isn't in your state as of now, you can always head over to the DraftKings Daily Fantasy app, where you can win cash prizes all year long. But more importantly than anything, DraftKings is not only very convenient, but also incredibly reliable and trustworthy. You will never have any problems either depositing or withdrawing your cash from either of the apps. So what are you guys waiting for? Head on over to the DraftKings Casino app right now, and when you sign up as a new customer and use code NCHammer, DraftKings will match your minimum $5 deposit dollar for dollar up to $2,000 in casino bonus funds. Please make sure to gamble responsibly, and if you do have a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. So jutsu, they're an incredible representation of a ninja's abilities. Some ninjas focus on taijutsu, some ninjas focus on ninjutsu, and some ninjas focus on genjutsu. And within the confines of these 3 separate categories, there is thousands of different jutsus that a certain ninja could use to create the most specialized attack or defense for themselves. And since different villages have different jutsus and fighting styles and defense tactics, not only do you as an individual most likely have your own taste for jutsus, you also have region-specific jutsus. And since the Naruto world is so big and so vast and filled with so many powerful and creative ninjas, this acts as a massive multiplier for the amount of jutsus that we get to see. But thinking of brand new jutsus all the time and drawing brand new jutsus all the time is tiresome, which is why within the confines of not only Naruto, but basically all shonen anime, the main character and the characters around them will have specific moves. Specific moves they use over and over and over again. Because you know what's a lot harder than having Naruto create a different kind of circle that he uses to attack an enemy every single time? Having Naruto have to think up brand new moves based off the thousands of possibilities he could actually be using. But really, we have nothing to complain about because, like I've already stated, we've been served to thousands of very cool and interesting jutsus throughout the duration of Naruto's run. Just the problem is some of these jutsus were so cool, we wanted to see more of them. And the first of those jutsus coming in at number 10 on our list is Sorcery's puppet mastery. See, this and a couple of the other entries on this list are going to be jutsu specific to one person. And I know you're going to say,
well, of course we couldn't see more of Sorcery's puppet mastery. He's dead after all.
The idea of Sorcery's puppet mastery could have been passed on to other people and fleshed out to a further degree. Because when we take a step back and we look at Sorcery's puppet mastery, it's kind of broken. You see, Sorcery was trained to be a puppet master by Granny Chiyo, who was quite literally his grandmother. And as arguably the strongest puppet master of all time, Granny Chiyo, she trained him up to be probably the strongest puppet master of all time, like a passing of the torch situation. But today I don't want to talk about how well Sorcery could control his puppets. Today I want to talk about how Sorcery was able to make his puppets. See, Sorcery is the only person we've ever seen with the ability to make humans into puppets. In that Sorcery, after killing somebody, could convert their body into that of a puppet. Now, the difference between these human puppets and a regular puppet is that Sorcery's puppets still have chakra and any Kekkei Genkai they had while living, which means not only were these puppets and therefore able to be controlled through chakra threads and also kind of invincible, because if you destroy a puppet, it can just be rebuilt later on. These puppets also had the ability to use jutsu, like Sorcery's 11th puppet, Hiroku, who he was able to use techniques like sand clone and chakra threads through, as Hiroku was kind of his walking armor puppet, created from the body of a legendary Suna shinobi. But the truest example of his human puppet mastery is in the form of the third Kazekage, as the third Kazekage was hailed as the strongest Kazekage of all time because of his Iron Sand Kekkei Genkai, a Kekkei Genkai that he was able to use in his puppet form, meaning that Sorcery, after killing the strongest Kazekage in history, because obviously it's Gaara, essentially inherited Magnet Release in the form of Iron Sand. This means if hypothetically Sorcery was to kill somebody like, oh, I don't know, Hashirama, which wouldn't happen, mind you, but if Sorcery was able to stumble upon his body, which apparently hundreds of other people have done, and then subsequently turn his body into that of a puppet, Sorcery would not only be able to inherit the abilities and strength of Hashirama in the form of that puppet, but also his Kekkei Genkai would release. For all intents and purposes, Sorcery's human puppetry acts a lot like Edo Tensei, with the dead being brought back with all of their abilities and technically an immortal body. And while obviously this version of Edo Tensei is significantly weaker because it requires direct input from Sorcery constantly, it's still a crazy ability. Honestly, that's not even truly what I'm talking about, because on top of being able to turn other humans into puppets, Sorcery was able to turn himself into a puppet. See, Sorcery was able to basically just extract his heart from his body and place it in a puppet, giving Sorcery a puppet body that only had a living core. But because of this, Sorcery's body was kind of invulnerable. Things like poison gas didn't work on him because he didn't have lungs. Things like Sakura's punches didn't hurt him because he didn't have organs for her to rupture. The only way to kill Sorcery was to puncture his living core. But considering the fact that that living core was attached to his human puppet, which was armed to the teeth with weapons, was kind of tough. And the thing is, Sorcery probably could have done this to anybody. The thing is, you don't even necessarily have to be a puppet master to undergo this procedure. Sorcery obviously did this procedure to himself because he was a puppet master, but if you simply detach this procedure from the fact that Sorcery was controlling puppets as a puppet, Sorcery basically has the ability to make him, or possibly anybody, invulnerable to most types of damage. On top of the fact that Sorcery didn't need to eat and couldn't run out of stamina. In essence, becoming a super soldier. So while yes, obviously we couldn't see more of it because it was specific to Sorcery, what I'm saying is introducing a broken jutsu like that and never fleshing it out outside of the confines of Sorcery feels criminal to me. Especially when you consider the fact that the Hidden Sand has been looking for ways to up their power for decades, going so far as to have Granny Chiyo research things like how to bring puppets to life, when in reality you could just make life puppets? It's weird we never crossed that bridge. But enough about Sorcery, let's get to talking about Naruto's best girl, Hinata. See, Hinata for a lot of the show was unfortunately very underpowered, but she was written that way in order to show her struggle against the genius of Neji. However, fortunately for Hinata, she did eventually catch up with Neji. I mean, I'd argue she's a lot stronger than Neji nowadays. She probably could have blocked a stick. But genuinely what allowed Hinata to catch up with the likes of Neji is the fact that she created her own jutsu. And that jutsu is called Gentle Step Twin Lion Fists. Now it's shown to us in Shippuden that Hinata figured out how to create this jutsu by emitting chakra from her Tenketsu points. You see, emitting chakra from a Tenketsu point is an ability specific to the Hyuga. It's how Neji's able to do things like rotation. And since there is 360 or so Tenketsu points in the body, the Hyuga are able to emit chakra basically anywhere from their body that they want. Hinata created this jutsu by emitting chakra from the Tenketsu points in her hands. She would then use shape transformation on the chakra she was emitting to turn her hands into that of lions. Now this ability not only increases Hinata's strength, but her range, as the lions operate as extensions of her fist. On top of that, anytime these lions come into contact with somebody else, it drains their chakra. And what's truly scary about this is that it can be used in conjunction with the 8 trigrams formation, as we've seen Hinata use the twin lion fist in conjunction with 8 trigrams 64 palms, meaning that Hinata has essentially found a way to upgrade one of the most powerful taijutsu practices in the show, increasing its power, range, and draining the chakra of anybody hit with it. So not only is Hinata able to shut down your chakra network, she's also able to drain you of chakra. Now, unfortunately, the only time we ever see Hinata use this technique is in the war arc and in her battle against Nagato, which is substantially longer in the anime than it is in the manga. We also get to see her use this technique in Naruto the Last, when her and Naruto use an upgraded version of this technique using Hamura's last remaining bit of chakra to destroy the Tenseigan. But honestly, I think that's kind of a shame, because as far as Hyuga clan abilities go, this arguably might be the strongest, outside of obviously the Tenseigan, which no member of the Hyuga clan can actually achieve. Hinata has in essence upgraded a technique that hasn't been upgraded in thousands of years. Not to mention that her creating this technique makes her the 3rd youngest person ever to make a jutsu, the only 2 people being ahead of her being Kakashi and Minato. So for those couple of reasons alone, I think we should have seen Hinata use this technique more often. This should have been a logical step forward for Hinata as a fighter, and instead, unfortunately, both in the end of Naruto and in Boruto, she takes a massive step back in terms of character development as a fighter. But speaking of taijutsu techniques, coming in at number 8, we have Drunken Fist. To call Drunken Fist a jutsu, I guess, is kind of a stretch. Drunken Fist is what happens when Rock Lee has even the smallest amount of alcohol. He has the alcohol tolerance of a bee. But because of this, whenever Rock Lee has even a small amount of alcohol, his fighting style becomes incredibly erratic, and he gains an ability known as Drunken Fist. Now, Drunken Fist is a real martial arts, most notably talked about in one of Jackie Chan's earliest movies, Drunken Master, where a young and relatively sexy Jackie Chan is a master of a martial arts that requires him to be intoxicated. And if you like old kung fu movies where there's like a terrible dub, highly recommend this movie, by the way. Jackie Chan's hair in it, gorgeous. And the power that Rock Lee has in this Drunken Fist form is not to be scoffed at, as by simply having a little bit of alcohol that Tsunade accidentally gave him thinking it was medicine, Rock Lee was able to go toe to toe against Kimimaru, the wielder of Shikatsu Myaku, the prodigy of Orochimaru, a character so strong that after Rock Lee sobered up, he almost killed Gaara and Rock Lee simultaneously. In fact, if he hadn't died due to plot reasons, he probably would have. But unfortunately, that's really the last time we ever see Drunken Fist used. There's another situation where Rock Lee accidentally gets alcohol at a restaurant, and Might Guy struggles to subdue him, needing Neji's help. That's Might Guy, the guy who almost killed Madara. Now, we've seen variations of this Drunken Fist, like when Rock Lee accidentally used Seasickness Fist. But honestly, when it comes down to it, the fact that Rock Lee is already a taijutsu genius, mixed in with the unpredictability of Drunken Fist, makes this almost impossible to fight against. If you were to combine any of the 8 gates openings with the Drunken Fist, he would be terrifying. And I think genuinely, it probably would have been much more compelling that after Might Guy failed to kill Madara, that Rock Lee stepped up in some capacity. And that capacity could be, well, incapacitated. But really, it wouldn't even have to happen against Madara. I would have just loved to seen this more often. And while obviously there's very strict broadcasting rules in Japan about alcohol and minors, so much so that what Rock Lee drank before his fight against Kimimaru is actually officially referred to as an elixir that's 40 to 60% alcohol. So yeah, make Rock Lee an alcoholic and make him an unstoppable force. But enough about taijutsu, let's get back to ninjutsu. Because coming up at number 6, we have Scorch Release. But specifically, Scorch Release Extremely Steaming Murder. But for the sake of I despise its full name, it's gonna be referred to as Scorch Release. The reason I feel as though the distinction is important is because Scorch Release is actually used multiple times throughout the duration of Naruto. However, once is by Pakura, a user who has the Scorch Release Kekkei Genkai, and the other is when Naruto and Sasuke combined their fire and wind releases to recreate Scorch Release. However, they do this with Naruto's wind style and Sasuke's Amaterasu. And I'm not talking about their combined Scorch Release, even though that was very cool and probably could hypothetically have been used again against the likes of Momoshiki or Ishiki. What I'm talking about is Pakura's Kekkei Genkai. See, Scorch Release is the combination of wind and fire release. And this jutsu was kind of just thrown at us. See, Bakura is a relatively legendary ninja from Suna, the Hidden Sand, and she was brought back via Edo Tensei in the War Arc, where for the first time we were introduced to a legendary Kekkei Genkai user, and Bakura was able to wield Scorch Release. The way that Bakura wielded her Scorch Release is that she created fireballs that were actually dubbed as mini suns, and she would fire these mini suns at her opponents. Now, if any of these fireballs or mini suns even so much as scraped you, they would evaporate all of the water in your body, instantly mummifying you. They were in essence one-shot kills that not only operated as one-shot kills, but also had one of the coolest one-shot kill mechanics in Naruto. You're telling me there's a move that can turn people into mummies? Now, obviously, just like with Sorcery, we're not gonna see this jutsu again because it was specific to Bakura, but usually with a Kekkei Genkai, there's multiple users. Things like Lava Release or Steam Release or Magnet Release have been used by multiple people. So the fact that we never got another Scorch Release user when Bakura was kind of just haphazardly thrown into the story kind of sucks, because I want to see Naruto or Sasuke mummifying some dudes. Coming up at number 6, we have a jutsu that everybody should have learned, but was written off as kind of a gag jutsu for some reason. Because coming up at number 6, we have the transparent escape technique. Now, the reason that this technique was written off is because it was created by Jiraiya as a child to spy on women while they bathe. And this technique operates exactly like hiding with camouflage technique, which is also gonna be co-sharing the 6th spot. You see, both of these techniques make the user completely invisible. And the hiding with camouflage technique not only makes the user invisible, but erases their scent, meaning that the only way to be detected while using either of these techniques is the sound you create. And obviously things like the Sharingan and the Byakugan, but not a lot of people have those. So in essence, there is 2 separate jutsus that make you fully invisible. And mind you, being fully invisible is what made Madara's Limbo clones broken. Yes, of course, you could only see his Limbo clones if you had a Rinne Sharingan or Sage mode, but you're genuinely telling me that there's a jutsu out there that makes you invisible and not every single Anbu member is using it?
Oh, I need to do reconnaissance. Let me use transformation jutsu or hide in a bush.
No, you can stand in the middle of the street. Just be invisible. And both of these techniques are manga canon. Uh-oh, I need to sneak up on Kisame or Hidan or Sorcery or anybody without a Sharingan and a Byakugan. Let me quickly go invisible. Let me send my shadow clones in there while invisible. If Naruto trained in this ability, he could have Limbo clones. Absolutely bonkers that they would introduce something like this and just be like,
Oh yeah, Jiraiya only used it to peep on chicks.
that is an insane jutsu. But enough about peeping on women, because coming up at number 5, we have water prison jutsu. Now, I know what you're gonna say,
Nick, this jutsu gets used a good amount.
not as often as it should. This technique is the ability to trap somebody in a prison made of water. In essence, you create a sphere, you put somebody in it, and they drown. Because the water used to create a water prison jutsu is actually a lot heavier and denser than regular water, which not only makes it almost impossible to move within the confines of a water prison jutsu, it also makes it very difficult to breathe. Because it's kind of weird. Ninjas can kind of breathe underwater. Like, a water prison jutsu doesn't drown you immediately. Like, you don't really need to hold your breath the whole time, but it does eventually drown you. I don't know, it's confusing. We haven't seen enough of it to really get a good grasp of what's going on with it. But really, the only times we've ever seen water prison used is when Zabuza used it against Kakashi and when Kisame used it against 10-10, Neji, and Rock Lee. Now, you could say that the water prison jutsu isn't that strong because you technically have to keep a body part of yours submerged in it to keep the water prison jutsu going. And therefore, in order to use water prison jutsu, you need to leave water clones behind to keep these prisons created. And I would agree with you if there wasn't other applications of the water prison. See, later on in Naruto, we saw that people would store important things like scrolls with forbidden jutsus in water prison jutsus. And anybody who would try to reach into these water prisons to acquire these scrolls would get caught in the water prison jutsu. And genuinely, the only ways we've ever seen somebody break out of water prison jutsu is when Neji released chakra from all of his Tenketsu points simultaneously. But even Kakashi went up against Zabuza. If Naruto and Sasuke weren't there, he probably would have died. On top of that, we saw Kisame widely expand on the water prison jutsu, creating water prison jutsu Shark Dance, where he releases an insane amount of water, enough water to cover an entire battlefield, and makes an entire battlefield a water prison. He then turns himself into a shark and makes the battle an underwater battle. and this water prison can change shape, so anybody trying to swim out of it can't get out. So I don't know about you, but the ability to trap people in a prison made out of water that they can't escape from sounds kind of broken. And while obviously Kisame could do it because he was part shark and he had gills, there is an entire village dedicating to using water ninjutsu. Why did we never see Tobirama use this? He was one of the most talented water ninjutsu users ever. There are so many other possible uses for water prison jutsu that never got fleshed out. And because of that, I feel as though it was critically underused, but not nearly as underused as the number 4 entry on this list, Body Pathway Derangement. Because what the hell? This was a jutsu we only saw get used once. This jutsu is a lightning release ninjutsu used by Tsunade. Well, it's actually technically a medical ninjutsu ability, so it's probably closer to taijutsu than anything. I don't know, it's weird. But Tsunade, in her battle against Kabuto, was able to give her chakra the properties of electricity, just like Killua. However, instead of making herself really fast, Tsunade, when coming into contact with somebody else, was able to shoot this electricity into that person's chakra system and their nervous system. Tsunade, with this ability, is able to completely derange somebody's nervous system, as your nervous system requires electrical signaling. This shock completely rewrites what your nervous system does. If you try to move your hand, your head moves. If you try to move your leg, your chest moves. It rewrites how the body moves itself. And considering the fact that you don't have to think about moving your body, it just kind of happens, this is an insane ability. Tsunade states that when most people are hit with this technique, they can't even walk. But obviously, Kabuto being a genius and plot demanding that Naruto step in to save the day, Kabuto was in a matter of seconds able to figure out how his body should move after his nervous system essentially being ruptured. But this is an A-rank lightning release jutsu that should effectively operate as a relatively easy to land one-shot KO. All Tsunade needs to do is cover herself in this lightning-like chakra and make contact with you. And if you can't walk, she can just stab you a bunch. Tie that into the fact that Tsunade has one of the highest levels of durability and stamina in all of Naruto, and all she needs to do is hit one punch against you? Why is the only time we've ever seen her use it against Kabuto? Could have at least tried it against Nagato or Madara. A couple of seconds of hesitation of them trying to refigure out how to move their body is a huge time window in Naruto. But that's just a little lightning release. What about being able to summon, oh, I don't know, a literal god to fight for you? Because that's what we have coming in at our number 3 entry. Coming in at number 3, we have Welcoming Approach, Thousand-Armed Murder. Now, this technique is only known by the monks of the Fire Temple, as using this technique requires that you train in a specific kind of chakra every single day. You have to, in essence, kind of dedicate your life to mastering this different kind of chakra. But here's the thing, every single monk at the Fire Temple has this kind of chakra, because simply to enter into the Fire Monk Temple, you have to open a gate. And the only way to open this gate is to funnel this specific kind of chakra into the gate. And once you've mastered this specific kind of chakra, you can use the Welcoming Approach jutsu. Now, here's my beef with this technique. This technique quite literally summons the spirit of the Thousand Arms Kanon. You know, the thing that Hashirama creates out of wood? This spirit is based off of a Buddhist god. See, Kanon is the Buddhist god of mercy and is often depicted having numerous hands. Now, when we see Hashirama bring this god to life, it was able to punch a Susanoo off of Kurama. But that's just Hashirama creating the image of Kanon with wood. These Fire Temple monks were quite literally summoning the god. And depending on how practiced in this chakra you are, changes the range and strength of this spirit. With people like Chiriku being able to summon a spirit that's roughly 100 feet tall. And Asuma being able to summon a significantly smaller one, but still able to summon one. And this spirit incarnation of God not only attacks enemies for you, but also defends you. Do you know what would happen if somebody like Naruto trained in this chakra? Why are we leaving the technique that summons a god to fight for you to the monks? I mean, Asuma, who almost definitely did not practice as hard in this chakra as all of the monks, was still able to manifest this jutsu. Not to mention, this jutsu allows you to attack physically without your own body, and therefore it's perfect for fights against people like Hidan. It feels like something they should be teaching in Ninja Academy. Something that they absolutely cannot teach in the academy, though, is our number 2 jutsu on this list, Koro Matsukame. Once again, I fully understand the limitations of Koro Matsukame and how Shisui is arguably the only person who should have ever been able to use it, but here's the problem: Shisui is the only person who never used it. Koro Matsukame is used 2 known times throughout the duration of Naruto. The first time is when we see it used by Danzo against Mifune. Danzo wanted Mifune on his side to help sway the other Hokages in electing Danzo to an important role. And the second time we see it used is when Itachi uses it against himself to snap himself out of the brainwashing that comes along with Edo Tensei, though it was originally supposed to be used against Sasuke. And that's it. Listen, Shisui is one of my least favorite characters in the entirety of Naruto, and that's not because of how he's written, it's because of how the Naruto community talks about Shisui.
Oh, he could have been so great, he could have been so powerful, he was underutilized, should have lived for longer, he literally would be the strongest Uchiha of all time.
He did nothing. All he did was get infected by some bugs and get his eyes pulled out by Danzo. He's not important. It was like, if he was this legendary ninja, probably should have been able to react to. So do I think it would have been cool to see Shisui use Koro Matsukame even once? Probably. Or we could have seen Danzo use it in a less kind of like irrelevant circumstance. Like, you have the world's strongest genjutsu. You have reduced its cooldown to, I believe, 3 days from 10 years. You can rewrite people's personalities simply by looking at them. Why aren't we using that every 3 days? There's actually a really good theory out there that Danzo was afraid to use Koro Matsukame within the confines of Konoha because of all of the Byakugan. Because we learned from Ao looking at Mifune that it was very easy to deduce that he was under genjutsu. And then if a bunch of people around Danzo just keep falling under genjutsu, it's gonna look a bit suspicious. So my real qualms are, why did we never see Shisui use it? And that Danzo could have used it on other villages. Danzo simply could have tried to use Koro Matsukame against the Akatsuki. In reality, the only cool and important time it was ever used is by Itachi. So for that reason, yeah, it's number 2 on the list. That seems trivial when compared to number 1 on this list. Because coming in at number 1 on this list, we have arguably one of the strongest jutsus in Naruto that was only ever used twice. That technique is the shape-shifting technique. Now, this is a technique used by Nagato, a technique that allowed Nagato to take somebody's chakra and put it into a sacrifice or just a civilian. Now, this technique is disgusting. And I don't mean like disgusting in a moral way, even though it does kill the person who has the chakra inflicted upon them. I mean disgusting in a disgustingly broken kind of way. Nagato, with this technique, is able to take chakra from people like Itachi and Kisame and put that chakra into other people. Now, this chakra doesn't just super boost those people, it makes those people into Kisame and Itachi. Not just look like them, like it's transformation jutsu. No, it makes them them. Any abilities like a Kekkei Genkai or a Dojutsu are immediately conferred to the person who received the chakra, meaning that if you get 30% of Itachi's chakra, you get dual MS. You get Susanoo, you get the Sword of Totsuka, you get the Yata Mirror, you get Tsukiyomi, you get Amaterasu, you get all of the ninja genius he has took years dedicating himself to form. You become Itachi. And the thing is, it goes beyond just abilities. You also get any specific weapons they wield. The clone created from Kisame's chakra had Samehada, not the original Samehada, a recreated perfect match Samehada. Now, Naruto is the person who came up against this 30% Itachi, and he ends up defeating him in a fight. And everyone's like,
Oh, this is the one person Naruto killed.
but that guy was technically already dead. The second you expend all of the chakra given to you using the shapeshifter technique, you die. So Naruto's technically never killed anyone. The other shapeshifter was of Kisame, and this 30% Kisame clone pushed my guy to the 7th gate. And the craziest thing about this is these clones can't regenerate chakra, which means that they have a set amount of chakra they can use before they die. Oh, and also all of these people put under the shapeshifter technique are under the complete and perfect control of Nagato, which means that a 30% Kisame who could not regenerate his chakra was under the control of Nagato and almost killed one of the strongest people in the show. And we used this technique twice. Why weren't we using that technique every single day? Chakra comes back. Nagato can extract 30% of Itachi or Kisame's chakra, and that chakra will come back. At least I think. It's never really explained whether or not that chakra is gone forever or just gone for a little bit. But I can't imagine that Nagato would handicap 2 of his strongest fighters by a third to send weakened versions of them to slow people down. So why On God's green earth, are we not sending 90% clones of all of the Akatsuki to Konoha every single day? Even if hypothetically they can't get the chakra back, take a 20% sample of everybody in the Akatsuki and just throw them at Konoha simultaneously. It's not like you're not able to get your hands on some bodies. And that's it. The definitive list of all the most aggravatingly underutilized jutsu in Naruto. Is there any jutsu that you believe are underutilized that I didn't have on this list? Tell me in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. Listen, do I want Nagato throwing 30% clones of Kisame at Konoha? Absolutely not. But I'm just saying, don't introduce something that broken if you're only gonna use it twice.